Item 6.4 is the Board of Education Finance Committee report. Dr. Conley, Dr. Carl.
Yes, the Finance Committee met just before this meeting. Mr. Porcaro prepared a summary for them, and I'll turn this over to him.
Thank you, Dr. Conway, through the chair. And I'll just hit the highlights because we did go through this in detail at the Finance Committee meeting. If I call your attention to the report that I passed out, it does have an updated year-to-date report, and so I would ask that you reference that one as Exhibit A versus the one that was passed out in your board packets, as this one is the most up-to-date. So current budget situation, $49,723,234, or 103.2% of our $48 million budget has been obligated, with a negative $1.5 million available. Our actual expenditures as of April 1st are at $34,923,346, or 72.5% of our budget. In comparison to last fiscal year at this time, $32.5 million was expended, 13.6 was encumbered, and 1.248 million, or 2.6, was available. We still are moving forward with a hard spending freeze. We don't expect that to change throughout the end of this fiscal year. Our primary drivers for our current projected deficits continue to be our magnet school tuition and our special education costs, which now include the special education magnet school tuition line item. Our estimated excess cost reimbursement from the state is still at 65% reimbursement rate of the available funds, which are typically capped. And that number we are projecting to be at $847,741. To offset the deficit further, we're looking to maximize, and we continue to be aggressive with both our tuition and seeking Medicaid reimbursement. We've discussed that in the past. We're looking, bottom line, at an increase of around $200,000 to $250,000 in increased revenue to the town, which may be helpful in offsetting this deficit when we have a final number sometime at the end of May, beginning of June, and having to share that with the town council for looking at possible solutions. We have expanded the spending freeze to include a hiring freeze, and we thank the union leadership for their willingness to partner with us in making that happen. That is until further notice. Critical refills of any positions that need to be made will be going through the superintendent's office, but the spending freeze has been expanded to now include a hiring freeze. Looking forward to the fiscal year 2014 budget, included in your packets for reference is the updated budget presentation and the final 6-year capital expenditure plan. Both of those are exhibits. I would like to spend a minute going over our health insurance projections for next year based upon our projected needs and use of the health insurance, and that's all inclusive of dental, prescription drugs, and health insurance. So let's look at fiscal year 14, what we've budgeted. For next year, our proposed budget calls for $5.765 million in total to the board, cost to the board. That represents a 6.18% increase in our medical insurance, a 4.97% increase in our dental insurance, and a 4.57% increase in prescription drugs. Our latest projections in partnership with our insurance brokers, based upon if everyone stays in their current plan, is we're looking at a total cost to the board of about $6.1 million. That means we're starting off next fiscal year, based on pure budgetary numbers alone, at around a $380,000 deficit in our health insurance, all-inclusive line item. The good news is that we did vote as a board to reduce that by our medical loss ratio funding that we did receive, which is now in a town account, in the amount of $92,126. And looking at our current rates, as you may recall from previous reports, we did put our health insurance out to bid. There were 3 options presented to us. There was an option of working, and this was done in partnership with the town, of having the health insurance rates combined with the town. That yielded a 13.2% increase for the town and for the board. And also looking at 2 options would be having the board go on their own and then the town going on their own with the same company and with different companies. So the best rate that we have determined in working with the town would be the board going on their own with Connecticut and the town going on their own with Connecticut. That reduces our total premium cost from 13.2% to 11% for the medical insurance. the difference of which is $132,187 in total premium costs. The added good news to that is that that would also yield, according to the town, an additional $15,000 in savings to the taxpayers. So what does that mean from our board budget perspective, which is what we're looking at now for next year? Well, the board's cost share of that $132,000 and change is approximately $98,000. So looking at that new rate of 11%, we can further reduce our deficit for next year projected by an additional $98,000. In addition to that, if everyone stays where they are, there's contractual obligations from the teachers that any amount paid in cost share by the teachers would be absorbed by the teachers in the Flex POS plan, not in the HSA plan, but in the POS traditional plan, and that would yield an additional $142,000 in change. So the bottom line is this: for our next year health insurance, all-inclusive of prescription and dental, and this includes the new rate of the 11%, we are starting the year with about a $33,000 deficit projected at this point. The good news is, if more of our employees move over to the health savings account, that number can easily be brought to zero, and we may be able to have positive savings on that account. But again, it's based upon the number of employees that move over to the health savings account. At tonight's Finance Committee meeting, we did hear from a representative from Brown & Brown regarding an excise tax as part of PPACA, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. This excise tax goes into effect in 2018, but obviously it's important from a negotiation standpoint for us to be thinking about this now. This tax is commonly referred to as the Cadillac tax, and the law currently states, and this again is subject to change over the next few years, but the law currently states that a 40% tax will be levied on any plans where the annual premium total is over $10,200 for individual coverage, or $27,500 for two-person or family coverage. So, based on current trends in our current PPO and POS plans at an increased rate per year of 6%, by 2018 we would be hitting that threshold. Not an issue for the health savings account, but for the current traditional healthcare plans that are in place today, that's obviously something we have to be cognizant of as we move forward with our negotiations and contracts and so forth. The way this would typically play out is that this tax would be billed to the provider. So if we were, for discussion purposes, with Connecticut in 2018 and this tax were to go into effect and we had a large number of employees and a plan where the threshold would be exceeded, the difference between these thresholds and what they're actually paying would be receiving a 40% tax to the provider. And then obviously the provider, Connecticut, would turn around and want to recoup those costs, and they would in turn bill that back to us as the client, and then obviously we would turn around and try to recoup some of those costs and increase the premium shares for our employees, and that's how we would have to distribute that increased tax. More to follow about that as the months go on, but something to keep on the radar screen. A couple other quick highlights in the budget summary section. We are applying for a reduced cost per kilowatt rate. We've done a great job at controlling our energy consumption, and as a result we believe it will qualify us for a cost per kilowatt rate reduction. We have worked collaboratively with the town to put out putting out an office equipment bid. We've written a draft bid that's currently with the town now that would basically improve the efficiency and reduce costs of our copying functions. This includes printers as well. And our goal here is to reduce the total number of units, but also increasing functionality through the use of document stations and document centers, standardizing what office equipment could be purchased from a service standpoint, and also incorporating some new technology that wouldn't limit you to just printing on one or two printers or document stations. It's called Follow Me technology, cloud printing, you might have heard it. Basically your ID badge, you can go to any printer and it'll give you access to your print jobs there. That's both on the town and the board side. Included in the report is the general categories of operating expenses for our copiers and printers, and our benchmark number that we need to try to reduce is currently at $189,700 a year, all inclusive of our lease costs and our consumables for photocopiers and printers in our district. Universal Service Fund, or E-rate dollars, Our fiscal year 2012 application in the amount of $82,439, as reported previously, was approved. We've received $38,000 of that and expect the balance of that to come in sometime in September. For next year, that should say FY13, you were correct, Dan. The approved funding application, it was in the amount of $73,049.42, and that has been approved. And our first payment, we expect to see a portion of that in February of next year. School-based health center bid. I'd like to talk briefly about that process, and Mrs. Buell's here through the chair and Dr. Conway for further details about the project. But by way of process, we have done an RFI, a request for information. As a result of that RFI and meeting with the board and getting feedback, we've put together an RFP. The RFP was issued. We had quite a few bites, but we did not have any formal proposals come in as a result of the request for proposal. So through an open and transparent process, actually two, RFI and RFP, we did not have any viable proposals. However, after the RFP timeframe closed, we did receive a proposal from First Choice Healthcare, the original company that came before this board and presented some information about the possibility of a school-based health center in our district. And obviously, that's something we need to look at further. But by way of process, we have satisfied all of the required procurement rules. And at this point in time, at the board's pleasure, we could entertain any proposal that's brought before this board now that we've satisfied those procurement rules. And with that, Dr. Conway or Mrs. Buell, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to it by way of process and next steps to the chair.
We are hoping to bring forward information as soon as possible to individual board members for your review prior to our next meeting about the specific bid that was received after it was closed. And so that you can read that and forward questions to us so that you can have an informed discussion at your meeting on the 22nd. So if there are any questions that we can flesh out for you, get answers for you, that would be terrific. Because we'd like you to have a very informed discussion and be able to read that ahead of time. So we're planning to make that bid that came in an electronic document and get it out to you individually prior to this meeting.
Thank you. So that way there you all have advance notice of this and have time to read it before we discuss it.